Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 224 of your favourite Formula 1 show. Yes, Jamie and I return this week out to discuss all the antics from the Chinese Grand Prix. And we're actually recording this less than an hour after the Chinese Grand Prix finished, so hopefully some of it is going to be fresh in our minds from the weekend. Jamie, first of all though, have you run a marathon this morning?
Not this morning. This time last week, I was in a lot of pain, but not thankfully not this week. I was able to watch the whole race. This is probably the quickest post-race we've ever recorded, I think. And yes, no marathons today. Although, as you brought it up, the medal is still behind me. Just to remind everyone, I did do one.
Good. Is it in shot now? Is it?
It's actually not. Let me
bring it into shot, Jamie. Come on. The fans want to see the medal that you brought.
The Roman shield, feeling like an absolute boss. I'll put that away for the rest of the episode, or I could put it on. No, I'm not doing that.
Go on, wear it. Go on, that'd be fantastic.
I look like the sprint race winner.
Wear it. Do it. Come on. Our audio listeners.
It might
come
go
on.
My headphones.
How big is your head?
There we go. It's on. We love it.
Good.
It's staying on
Wonderful.
the rest of the episode.
Fantastic. So if you hear jingling in the background, you guys will know what that is. But of course, yeah, I mean, we've quickly just got to mention, because a couple of you guys did ask about it as well. Unfortunately, we did leave a comment on Friday's Shanghai, or Thursday? Thursday's Shanghai preview, obviously for the podcast. Unfortunately, we literally recorded the China pre-show, and then within mere minutes of us finishing the recording, of course, it was confirmed that sadly we had lost Eddie Jordan. He was very, very quick, wasn't it? An aggressive fight with cancer, unfortunately. But yeah, that's obviously why we didn't bring it up in last week's show. But I mean, he was such a character, wasn't he? Around the grid.
Yeah, he was hilarious, and he was a real. When he's on screen, he just captured the whole screen. And I listened quite a lot to I still do listen quite a lot to the Formula for Success, which was his and David Coulthard's podcast, which was always entertaining, although never that informative, but yeah, very entertaining.
No, and I think that's just kind of, I mean, Eddie was just unapologetically Eddie at the end of the day, wasn't he? And he had his own way of kind of doing things, which I think the fact that nobody could ever get in his way of doing it the Eddie way was just kind of what had made him special. But obviously, yeah, unfortunately, we've lost another great voice in and around the Formula 1 world. But as they say, I'm sure Eddie would feel the same way. The show must go on, didn't it, as we rolled into Shanghai. I'm really hoping that Aston Martin do like a proper tribute livery. Because imagine if they either brought like the 1991 car or put a buzzing hornet on the front of one of the cars. That'd be so sick.
It would be
at
very
some
cool.
point this year.
I guess they might do Silverstone or something, because that's obviously where
you'd hope so. Either Silverstone or Belgium, I think, would be the two you'd want to do it at. Belgium, obviously, Michael Schumacher's debut, first pole and first win, all coming in different years, bizarrely. But yeah, I hope they do something with that. Let's get into the sprint, though, Jamie. First and foremost, or the sprint weekend, I should say. Obviously, the first sprint weekend of 2025. I think a lot of people forgot, obviously, it was the first sprint weekend of 2025, because I was about 7:30 on Friday morning watching qualifying, and I understand for most people, it's terrible, because you're trying to get to work, but for someone that works from home, it's fantastic fun.
Yeah, exactly. I just finished quali and then turned my laptop on. It was great. But, sprint quali, it's probably my least favourite session in any sprint weekend, just because it feels
Apart from
like
free practice.
Well, yeah, I don't watch practice, but I just feel like they should do something different. Just give us one shot or something like that, because it's way too similar to normal quali. It just feels like deja vu when you get to the real quali.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. It's 44 minutes, isn't it? Sprint quali's meant to be.
Yeah, so
you
give 2
could
minutes.
just about do one shot qualifying around most circuits in about the same time, couldn't you?
Yeah, and everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, what if it rains?" Well, that'd be funny. We used to have it.
Exactly.
In 05,
it's only a sprint race. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Exactly, and you do it in maybe you should pre-weekend do a draft of the person at the top of the championship gets to pick their slot first of when they want to go, and then the second place.
I think you just most likely, unless it was a real chance of rain, you just most likely go last, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would. But then, maybe if you see there's rain coming at a certain time, you'd be clever with it. And even if you do it on the morning of, that'd be quite interesting. Just give us something different, because I don't love sprint qualifying at all.
I think they should still, if they were going to do that, do it in do it in reverse championship order. Simply for the fact that if you're obviously doing better in the World Championship, you get a slight advantage.
Yeah.
But it's enough that it could be swung the other way.
Yeah, and if it rains loads, it'd be really funny.
It would.
Yeah, you'd get Salvas on pole.
Well, you might not, because Hulkenberg, yet again, failing to make it into Sprint Q2. Obviously, Bortoleto did make it through, so Bortoleto was at that point
meaningless qualifying session. We'll put that one out.
I mean, let's be real. We can talk about this now very briefly, can't we, Jamie? Sauber's back this weekend, baby.
Oh, they were awful.
That was not a great race.
The race pace, especially. I mean, I never saw what happened to Hulkenberg on lap 1, but he dropped from 12th to 19th and then just stayed there. Like,
basically, for the rest of the afternoon.
I don't know what was going on, but they are back.
Yeah,
and very much
Alpine
back.
as well. They seem to be back because they were both out in Q1 alongside.
Supposedly
like I said,
they both got blocked, both the Alpines.
Yes,
in Q1.
yeah, that did kind of screw them over.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were joined by Ocon, Hulkenberg, and Liam Lawson last again.
Gosh,
I mean, it was just the same story as Australia, wasn't it? That car just looked all over the show.
I really feel for Liam Lawson. Suzuka has to be better because he's raced there before. He did it in Super Formula. Yeah. I really feel for him because he's never been to either of these tracks, Melbourne or Shanghai. He's the only driver who's never raced at either of them.
Which is mad, isn't it, when you think that he never was raced around Melbourne? Because you think he would have done like some show run at some point or something. But
but he hasn't. And he had another shocking weekend. And the Ted Kravitz asked Christian Horner on it, didn't he? Where like, you didn't pay off Checo Perez for Lawson to qualify last, did you? And it was a pretty cold answer from Christian Horner. So yeah, I do feel for him because I like the guy, I like the kid, and yeah, he needs to pick it up basically. But last place in quali and sprint quali, so back to back P20s. We'll get into that one later, but not the best showing at all.
I wonder if Red Bull at some point this year will get into a situation where they're going, Max, look, the World Championship just isn't going to happen this year. We've got to just try and change the car around so at least both cars can be somewhat competitive.
That won't happen.
Whether Verstappen would never let that happen or not, I don't know.
Also, why wouldn't he win the championship? He's driving really well. I know the car's rubbish, but Max has been operating sensibly. Very high level.
I mean, he has still obviously been operating and getting a lot out of that car, and again, we'll continue discussing that, but even I was going to talk about this a bit more once we get into like the sprint and into the race. The way he's driving, he doesn't feel a world championship is possible either at the moment. Like, he's still getting a lot out of the car, but he's not defending in a lot of situations where you'd expect if he thought he was in a fight, he would.
Especially against the McLarens, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We've jumped ahead massively there. Let's talk about the rest of sprint qualifying. Fernando Alonso, Ollie Behrman, Sainz, Bortoleto and Hadjar out in Q2. Isaac Hadjar, probably the only notable thing that happened, of course, was this huge moment down at turn 1, but luckily was able to keep it away from any barriers or anything like that. And then Q3, Jamie183, he's back. Lewis Hamilton, it doesn't count as an official poll, and I understand how stupid it is that most Brits and Italians couldn't watch it because they were trying to get to work on a Friday morning. But Lewis Hamilton takes his first pole in... Well, yeah, but some of them do. Some of them do, I think. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton on pole in a Ferrari. And it was one of those bizarre ones, wasn't it, where McLaren tried to get both drivers to do 2 runs. Didn't work. But Lewis and Max front row was just the two best drivers under pressure getting it done, basically, wasn't it?
Yeah. An 18,000th of a second. I thought Max was going to snatch it at the last minute, but sadly not. But yeah, I was genuinely quite happy for Lewis. His little chuckle on the radio when they told him it was P1, or Santiago, whatever that means. Who knows? Yes, I'm very above board. I'm not a Lewis Hamilton fan, but I don't hate the guy. I think he's one of the best drivers of all time, not the best. But yeah, I was happy for him. It brought a smile to my face.
Yeah, bless it. And the first time a driver over the age of 40, Jamie, has taken pole since?
It's not a pole, but it would be since...
But it is. Yeah.
Since Niki Lauda? No, he didn't race into his 40s, did he? Oh, well, Schumacher in Monaco would have been it, but no.
That doesn't count, no.
Is it like well back? Is like Sterling Moss or Fangio or something?
Nigel Mansell, 1994
Oh, wow.
in Adelaide.
I didn't know Mansell was in his
1994 season.
Wow.
Yeah, Mansell was 41, I believe.
Wow,
Mansell came into Formula One very late on. I think people often forget this.
Yeah, Hill came in at 30 as well.
Well, Mansell came in genuinely, I think, at like 28, 29.
Yeah.
Hill was like famously old getting in.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously Lewis got pole. Max Verstappen joined him on the front row. Lando Norris, in Lando Norris style, bottled it. Right at the end of his final run, locked up down at the hairpin. I don't think he would have smashed pole out of the park, but I think that McLaren, sensibly, they should have got pole there. But it would leave Oscar, Charles on the second row, Russell ahead of Lando with Kimi Antonelli, Tsunoda, Albon, and Stroll rounding out our top 10. And that took us nicely then, Jamie, into the sprint race on Saturday. I did really and ah about getting up for it, but 3:30 in the morning, especially when I had a 12-hour race to do, I just thought not a chance.
I did not
this weekend,
about
sadly.
it. I had no thought in my mind about getting up. But
Fair
I did
enough,
watch the highlights, like, in real time, as it were. So I didn't know the result before I watched the YouTube video. So it felt like I was watching it for real, just on high speed.
Nice.
Yeah. It was an interesting sprint race, actually. Obviously, Lewis held off Max into turn 1 and kind of just drove off, didn't he, after that? And
he tried to break the DRS, but couldn't do it that early on. But it seemed like Max was taking more out of his tyres, wasn't it?
Yeah, the clear air made a massive difference all weekend, really, which helped Hamilton out. Norris dropping back was classically Lando Norris on lap 1, wasn't it? And yeah, the mistake into turn 6 was amateur, completely, on lap 1 for Lando, sticking wheel on the grass under no pressure and losing 3 places. It was not too clever. That dropped him briefly out of the points behind Stroll, wasn't it? And
boy, it was quite a lot of the sprint race. He was out of the points behind Stroll.
Yeah.
He struggled to get back to him until very late on.
We
also obviously had
blaming
George
the car
Russell
for him being just a bit mid. It was not
too clever. If you're Lando Norris now, that comment you made a couple of years ago about Hamilton and then Max about how they should win every race because they've got the fastest car, is really, like, you've got to be thinking back to that going,
that wasn't too smart, was it?
Slightly more difficult than I'd originally given them credit for.
In the words of Roy Keane, that wasn't too clever.
Yeah, there is definitely still a difference, isn't there, between a Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, and, well, I'd argue every single other driver on the grid still, isn't it? When you're put in that position to win.
And I think that's why I've still got some hope for this season, because the McLarens will take points off each other, and they're also still not the complete drivers just because of their age and experience, or inexperience, and just talent. So, if there is an opportunity for Max to win a race, he will go and win it, or Lewis in the right car. Those McLaren drivers,
both of them, if they've got a car that can, they will both fight for it.
Yeah, but the McLaren drivers are not quite there. And Norris did very well in Melbourne, obviously, top driver. But there'll be races like this where he's just putting wheels on grass and finishing 8th. So, yeah, not the best.
Not ideal. And I mean, for Lando, it took him most of the sprint race to catch back up to Lance Stroll, which was not ideal. But like we said, of course, as we've often complained about with the sprint races, they kind of give you a precursor, don't they, to what the real Grand Prix is going to look like. And it was just a quintessential, we've spoke about this so many times, a quintessential ground effect era race of, there's quite a lot of DRS passes going on, but that's all at the rear of the field. Up at the front, no one can get close enough to each other because you just wreck your tyres. Yeah. And especially around a circuit like Shanghai that is so aggressive on the tyres. I mean, like we said, Hamilton basically just got out of the DRS and kind of didn't walk away necessarily, but just then kind of managed things at the front.
Yeah.
Liam Lawson and Jack Doohan had a crash with each other on lap 4, because I think Liam Lawson, after his sort of qualifying, was kind of trying to do the big old me again, look how aggressive I am with everybody else. I still don't know what happened. Why did Carlos Sainz have to pit?
He didn't have to. They just he was dropping back,
just did.
so they just used it as a practice session. Same as what the Saubers did, basically. Once they were not in contention for points, you might as well just test out different tyres.
Yeah, and as I say, this is obviously what I was talking about a couple of minutes ago about, I just don't think Max feels he's actually in with a shot at the world title this year, because finally when Oscar got to him on lap 15, just because he had been focusing on looking after his tyres a bit more. If Max genuinely felt there was a chance at the championship, he would have defended that. But Oscar just went straight past him in a straight line.
I'm not too sure, because it's not that close to the end. There were, 5 laps to go after that? And the fact that Piastri was so close to it, because he did defend into turn 1, that's what actually gave Piastri the chance down the back straight, because he was close enough to harry him the rest of the lap. That Max just knew that with 4 or 5 laps to go, he's fighting a losing battle anyway against the pace of that McLaren. So he's done it quite a lot before, where if he knows that he won't be able to defend, so, you know, in Kota, wasn't he? He just sent the Ferrari straight through and then defended his absolute life against Norris because he knew the Ferrari was quicker. But, like, because he knows what, and it's not worth crashing over a point difference between second and third.
Not especially in a sprint, yeah.
Especially when he probably thinks his battle's against Norris in the long game rather than Piastri. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah. We'll see. But I don't think it's throwing in the towel in the first.
No, I don't think throwing in the towel is fair. But I also think it's just kind of a. You know, I think Max genuinely probably his mindset at the moment as well is just going to be, I've got to play the points game for the first, basically till Spain, I would have thought. Because that's, I think, kind of where Red Bull are hoping their car will come back. And it's basically, how close can I be? We might genuinely end up in a situation this year where we got a reverse of last year. Lando tries to build up a lead at the start of the year and then Max in the second half has to catch him up.
Hopefully.
Which, I'll be honest, if I had to put money on it, I know where my money would be going still.
5-time champion of the world. That sounds nice.
Shocking. But yeah, Leclerc would then also get Russell, to Russell by the end of the Grand Prix, or by the end of the sprint race, we couldn't do anything with it. So it was fair, like I said, it was kind of your typical ground effect race, wasn't it, of there's stuff going on, but nothing too dramatic. But it would mean, Jamie, although it's not a proper win, I would get to see Hamilton winning red. And I tell you what, to do that in Shanghai, where Lewis is very well loved and Ferrari is very well loved, the scenes around the Shanghai circuit were pretty special.
It was cool, wasn't it? I was happy for him. I was also glad it's not a real race, so that's nice. But yeah, and he always does well at Shanghai. First ever pole for Mercedes, first ever pole for McLaren.
Oh, I thought you meant this way. He got their first pole, not his.
No, Lewis got his first pole for Mercedes in 2013.
Did he get his first pole for McLaren in Shanghai at the end of the year? Didn't he do
no. That was well early.
I was going to say, he would have done it in Montreal 07.
Yeah. And he got one earlier on than that. I forgot Shanghai was last minute, because obviously he went to the gravel there, didn't he? That was a wrong stat. Yeah. Apologies. But
it's not a stat if it's wrong,
someone
surely.
said that on I think Brundle said it on Sky. But maybe I misheard him. Martin Brundle must have had a cold.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, Hamilton would take the win, though, ahead of Oscar. Max in P3 ahead of Russell, Leclerc, Tsunoda. Tsunoda, again, that V-carb is looking very, very good at the moment.
It is.
Antonelli in 7th, and Norris would get Stroll by the end of the sprint. And also, Jack Doohan would get involved in more carnage because he'd spin Lando out in the last lap.
Yes.
And basically create a roadblock.
I think Doohan might be on borrowed time based on his
I wouldn't say so
weekend.
yet. His paces looked all right.
But he's very, very scrappy, isn't he? He doesn't know when to stop fighting.
But Flavio Briatore likes that.
He does. He
likes a bit of getting the elbows.
The Grand Prix didn't go too well for Doohan either. But
neither Alpine really in the end.
No.
Yeah, I know it went better for the other one, but still. Qualifying again though for those Alpines would not go particularly well. Both of them again out in Q1. Alongside Ollie Behrman, Bortoletto, and our resident P20. Say it with me, Jamie.
Liam Lawson.
Out again. Last place. You know, so far, his qualifying average in that Red Bull is worse than Nikita Mazepin's at Haas.
Wow. Yeah, it's been, 18th 2020, isn't it?
Yep, he's averaged... 19, 20 and 20. He's averaged a 19.67 start average to Mazepin's 19.33.
Yeah, and I felt so bad because Lawson got a couple of good laps. Well, goodish. He finished the laps without major errors. And he put it, 15th, I think, was where he was.
He was 2 tenths away in the end, yeah.
And then, you just see all the other drivers improving. It's oh no, Lawson's going to be 20th again. And then he was.
Wait, it's what I don't get is every single time a Q1 ends, Obviously, you go around all the cars and they go, and Liam Lawson in last. He's already back in the pit box.
Yeah.
Why aren't they keeping him out at the end of it? Like, I understand Australia, he binned it at the end of his lap, so just bailed. But why is it every time?
At least give him the best of the track. He needs all he can get.
Exactly. Really. You just cut to him always in the pit lane, watching it happen.
Also, no fanfare for Bortoleto losing to Hulkenberg, as much as there was.
No, we're not going to talk about that. Hulkenberg's had how many more races?
300 odd.
Exactly, and he would end up out anyway, just behind Ocon, just ahead of both Aston Martins. And Carlos Sainz, I understand he's gone into a new team, but
he's not hit the ground running, has he?
Yeah, can we start to talk about Alex Albon maybe not being on fraud watch?
No, Albon's good. Maybe Sainz is the one on fraud watch. But Hulkenberg P12, I've got a glaze where I can because the rest of the weekend was awful. But P12 when that's Albon.
Yeah, it was. It seems like this weekend it was like the opposite of Australia. Of the car had much better qualifying pace than race pace. I mean, let's be fair. The car in Australia actually wasn't that fantastic. No. It was just he was at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, he got a bit lucky with the call and got his only points of the season. I'll maintain that.
You're already saying that, are you? Oh man.
Yes.
Let's just also say, Jamie. Although again, qualifying pace for neither car looked fantastic. We spoke about it pre-weekend. Haas were back, which was good for them.
I genuinely think the whole midfield. I thought Albon talking about this after quali. The whole midfield is so tight. Basically.
Oh yeah.
So Q1 and Q2, the cut-off time was almost the same, because it's basically who nails their lap. So, because from basically 6th downwards, if you discount Antonelli and Lawson, who get dragged into that midfield, you've got all the cars within a few tenths, so drivers can really make a difference. Which is why the likes of the Haas's and your good drivers in that midfield can make a difference. The likes of Albon, Tsunoda, Hulkenberg, and to be fair to him, Ocon. I thought Ocon was very good this weekend.
But I was going to say as well, it's also if you just so happen to accidentally take the setup in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Can make all the difference as well.
Or you start your lap too close to traffic, or you're not tyres warmed up, or anything like that.
Anything. Clearly, Jamie's trying to use this to hype up Oscar Piastri, because he would be the one that stormed to pole by the end of the session, going quicker than Lando Norris. He actually looked just a little bit quicker than Lando
all weekend.
Quite a few.
Certainly on Saturday.
Throughout Saturday as well. George Russell, though, with a lap out of nowhere right at the end of Q3 to split the McLarens. Which is rather impressive.
Would have been
tell you what,
hilarious if Russell snatched pole after Crofty declared Piastri had his first pole in F1.
He would have, that would have been quite funny in the end. I tell you what, Russell as well is another one that I think we've got to keep an eye out for this year. Him and Max could both be in a situation where we kind of get 17, 18 races in, and they're still not a million miles away. Yeah. Which would be fantastic to
Russell's
see.
Under the radar so far, but very, very good.
Yeah, Lando P3 ahead of Max. Ferrari would lock out row 3 in a bit of a disappointing effort in the end. Hadjar, shout-outs to him. Best of the rest. Absolutely fantastic effort there. Ahead of Antonelli, Tsunoda and Albon, Jamie. And that brings us into the Grand Prix.
It does. And much easier to get up for a 7 o'clock start for the Grand Prix than it was for a 3 a.m. start. Lawson decided to go into pits because he's last anyway. And the lights were out and away we went. And Piastri, to be fair to him, did a right job for Lando Norris on the way to turn 1. And basically just cut Russell right up. And Norris flew around the outside, and that was that, really. McLaren won 2. And I was saying to some of my mates last night, which I know unbelievable, I actually have some friends, but I was saying it should be a good race unless Norris gets Russell straight away, and then it'll be a McLaren 1-2. And that is exactly what happened. And sadly, it settled extremely quickly, but not before Max Verstappen got a poor start and dropped behind both Ferraris, who also managed to get together at turn 2. And weirdly, I feel like Leclerc always has to do a race a season with half a front wing. It feels that way.
Pretty much.
And this was that one for him. And it was all his own fault, because he did go in a bit hot and just clipped the back of Lewis Hamilton. Lost that front left end plate. And didn't bother ever repairing it.
No, it made no difference to the pace of the car, which is quite... In fact, if anything, it made him quicker as the rest of the session went on, which, again... Why on the F1 games does it not work like this? Why whenever you get a tiny bit of damage, does it cost you 3 seconds a lap? It's so annoying. But anyway, there was more chaos on lap 1, because Bortoleto would unfortunately go for a spin. And he basically meant, I think by lap 2, he was 50 seconds off the lead. because he ended up pitting and basically just moving on to hards. So despite being 35 seconds away from Hulkenberg, Jamie, he still beat him by the end of the race.
They just turned it into a test session, didn't they?
We have no idea. We were talking about this as well pre-show. What happened to Hulkenberg on lap 1?
They didn't.
Why did he end up 19th?
They never showed it. They never ever showed it. It was well annoying. But yeah, I don't know. He went from 12th to 19th and then just stayed in 19th.
Basically for the rest of the afternoon. Yeah. Well, he didn't stay in 19th for long because Fernando Alonso's brakes would fail almost immediately. Double retirement so far for Alonso. I believe that leaves. Surely it leaves him last in the World Championship.
He won't be classified in the Championship yet.
He's not classified in the World Championship. There's only 19 runners on the F1 table. That's incredible.
Alonso is yet to enter the World Championship this season, technically. Although, do you not finish a sprint race? I guess he should be on there, really, shouldn't he?
Yeah, I guess you don't get classified.
You don't get
for
a
that,
classification. Yeah, weird.
That's mad. He's not on anything.
No, so Alonso still yet to turn up. He might do in Suzuka, but we'll see. But out of the race very quickly. And a shame for him because at least this one wasn't his own fault.
No. I mean, basically, then let's be fair, especially at the front of the order, which is the bit that people do care about. It just became a race of tyre strategy, didn't it? Entirely. Yeah. After how great Australia was last weekend, and I know some people will go, there was a lot of battling still and things like that.
Like, honestly, there wasn't.
Put on a good show.
There really there wasn't that much battling. You had the first.
There was towards the rear.
But up until the pit stops, the first stop, there was not a single overtake. After
there was.
So the first 12 laps or so, nothing happened at all. And then, to be honest, after the tyre strategies settled down, so from about lap 35 onwards, there also were about 2 overtakes.
Well, no, because Hadjar and Doohan were absolutely putting on a show towards the end.
They were going for it. But yeah, we'll get to that later. But yeah, Russell did pit first of the front runners and very briefly undercut Lando Norris. But I feel like the McLarens were probably at about 50% most of the race. And then as soon as he had to overtake somebody, I can actually go fast now. So he's going to go and make an overtake. And Norris got straight back into second place.
Yeah, I think there was probably an element from McLaren which seems hilarious again to say this so early on in the year, but I don't think they wanted the drivers screwing each other over if they had to make a second stop or anything.
Yeah. And they didn't.
But I also
Norris
don't think they could really get close enough to each other very easily.
No, definitely not in clear air. But what they could have done is they could have pit Norris the same lap as Russell and risk Norris.
No, because Oscar did.
Yeah, exactly. But they could have just pit Norris first and then made him swap back. But
they
didn't want a Hungary situation.
No, exactly.
From last year.
Exactly. Kimi Antonelli, again, where we've said, it's quite impressive, isn't it, now, when you think, your V-Carbs, your Hasses, your Alpines, they're not that far away from the front runner's pace anymore, are they?
They're not. Looking back at 2018-19, sort of, there would be 2 seconds a lap between the Renaults and the Hasses in 5th and 6th, and the top
normally, but in 2019, you'd have 5 cars on the lead lap.
Yeah.
Gasly and everybody else would be a lap down in that Red Bull.
Harsh on Gasly, but true.
It was bang on.
Yeah. So, but the pace differential of the whole field is not that big, which is actually it makes for some good, interesting races.
It does make strategy interesting, yeah. Because, you had that situation, didn't you, by kind of just over half distance, where a lot of your front runners were kind of still umming and ahhing about whether a one-stop would be possible. And you were looking at it going, well, they can't really pit again yet anyway, because they'll just get caught in that huge train that, Ocon, Gasly, Antonelli were all stuck in. But what I was originally going to say was, of course, that obviously poor Antonelli, still obviously trying to learn that Mercedes, being 0.3 a lap slower than George Russell, kind of just screws you to a day battling with the midfield, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which looks awful on paper, but when your pace actually isn't that different, is probably quite tough.
Well, it's good enough for driver of the day, isn't it? Apparently,
I don't get that. I like Kimi Antonelli, but I don't understand how on earth he's got that.
Insane, isn't it? I don't get that at all. But to be fair to Ocon, he did extremely well. And the undercut on Antonelli, and then he just kind of gapped him and kept him there the whole race. So fair play.
Yeah, because, again, drivers just could not stay close to each other very easily.
No, exactly. One driver who could stay close to somebody else was Charles Leclerc behind Lewis Hamilton.
He did.
With half a front wing, was able to put the pressure on. It was actually
Hamilton's a bit extreme.
It was Hamilton's idea, supposedly, to swap over, which I thought was very nice of him.
He just couldn't adapt to the fact, obviously, they changed the tyre pressures after sprint quali. Which, how on earth Pirelli are allowed to do that mid-weekend?
Seven-time world champion should probably be quite adaptable, but everyone else adapted to it.
He's still trying to learn a new car. Not everybody. Fernando Alonso didn't.
Well, his brakes certainly didn't, that's for sure. Yes, so Hamilton did let Leclerc through without much fanfare, really. And meanwhile, Verstappen was just on the back of them, a little bit off. The Red Bull really didn't have any pace
kind of waiting in the
all.
wings, wasn't he?
Yeah. And that, at what point do we start saying, is the V-Carb actually faster?
We don't, because it's not.
But the fact he was only 2/10 ahead of the V-Carbs in quali, Verstappen is easily 2/10 of a driver better than Tsunoda or
But if
Hadjar.
that car's so undrivable and you can get more out of the V-Carb, then...
What I want to see is a driver swap. They put
Verstappen in the
V-Carb for one race weekend. See what happens.
That would be quite funny. Stroll and Behrman, though, at least they kind of make the strategy a bit different, wouldn't they? Because they go uber long on the hard tyres early on, because most people had started on mediums, had then either committed to a two-stop if you were V-Carb, which pretty much immediately they worked out they'd screwed themselves. Or obviously Behrman, and Stroll obviously starting on the hard, so they basically just kind of had to go as long as they possibly ever could.
And fair play to Stroll. Stroll actually did very well. I mean, I'm
he did take those tyres very far.
That he didn't get points in the end, but I was rooting for Lance Stroll this race, which I never thought I'd be saying.
No. Hamilton then would be one of the only front runners. He would be the only front runner, wouldn't he, to try the two-stop, because again, just the tyre pressures had kind of screwed him over. They knew they'd get out just ahead of Ocon and that group of cars late on. So it was kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't.
He was going to lose to Verstappen anyway, because Verstappen started picking up the pace. And he was basically like, well, we might as well do a two-stop because we're going to finish 6th regardless. So we've got a gap.
Yeah, the worst thing you want is the tyres to completely fall off and then potentially be under more pressure towards the end.
Exactly.
And I think ultimately, just as the race went on, the Ferraris just got worse in comparison to everybody else.
Yeah, they weren't great on the tyres.
That car was never intended to really one-stop in the way the others were, because it would even mean by the end of the Grand Prix, Max Verstappen obviously made a brilliant move on Charles Leclerc, didn't he?
He did.
Through turn
very,
1 and
very
turn
move
2.
of the race, that, I think. Very, very good move.
Got to definitely be up there. Definitely. Lando Norris as well, though. It wouldn't be a Grand Prix without McLaren having a little bit of their own drama, despite comfortably having, the fastest car. Norris would be told, he'd tell the team that his brake pedal was starting to go long, so they told him to just go easy on it, and Norris, that's kind of the thing a toddler would do, wasn't it? They tell him to go easy, so he tries to drive faster, and then obviously almost completely screws himself at the end of the race.
Good logic. If you drive faster, the race is over quicker, then there's less time for the brake
to fail. But it wasn't, because he almost got jumped by George.
Yeah, he properly had to nurse it at the end, didn't he? It would have been very funny if he lost more points in the fastest car. But he held on just about, but he was proper lifting coast, wasn't he, on the last lap? And I think he lost 8 or 9 seconds.
It was only about 6 or 7, yeah. But it does make you realise, doesn't it, that Shanghai, really, there's only 2 big braking zones on the entire lap?
Yeah.
Because a lot of them obviously are so long flowing corners on the way in, you can just lift.
Yeah, and he was barely hitting his brake on the last lap. It wasn't that the brake pressure was dropping. That was a great radio with Will Joseph saying, "I know this is boring," and I was like, "Yes, I agree." But the brake pressure wasn't changing. It was just the distance he had to press the brake for the pressure to become engaged was further and further. So I don't think it was ever a risk of the brakes failing. He just had to basically push it all the way to the floor to get anything, which can't be a nice feeling.
It was the connection to the brakes rather than the brakes themselves, basically. As the race kind of calmed down though towards the end, at least doing it at Hadjar would keep it entertaining, wouldn't they? Yeah. Because they would just have an almighty scrap that would involve getting a penalty and probably losing his drive. I think it was good to see him get his elbows out. For the rookies, you need to be able to build that confidence, which is important.
It was, and it'll take a lot from the fact that he beat him on track, even if he got a penalty for it and lost. But
yeah. And they both beat Yuki Tsunoda because his wing would just completely give up.
Yeah,
late on.
a really weird part of the front wing just gave way, and the structural integrity was not all that on the connection point between the nose and the main fences. It just stopped. And he had to stop again. And the fact that V-Carb came out of that Grand Prix with no points when they started both in the top 10 is pretty incredible. And still, their only points of the season
screwed on strategy, didn't they?
Are in the sprint race. They haven't scored a point in the Grand Prix yet. In the fifth.
They haven't scored a legitimate point, have they?
No.
Which is quite funny. Quite impressive so far. But yeah, obviously that would mean Oscar Piastri. I mean, we just didn't see him after lap 1, did he?
No.
He would take the victory there. The gap was helped by Lando's brake issues towards the end, and his inability to apparently listen to basic orders and monitor those brakes. But he would come through still just ahead of Russell for P2. So an all Commonwealth podium, Jamie. We've got to like that.
We've got 3 Union
Max
flags.
Verstappen in 4th.
Long live the Empire.
Max Verstappen in 4th again, got the better of Ferrari. I think Ferrari just didn't have the pace or the ability on those tyres to extend them as far. Leclerc just beat out Hamilton after his tyres completely fell apart right at the end. Ocon, shout out, in P7 in that Haas car. That was certainly a great return to form for them, ahead of Antonelli. Albon in P9, so more points for Williams. And Behrman as well, getting Haas a double points finish. That I don't think has ever happened in Shanghai.
I don't think anyone saw it coming either after how slow they were in Melbourne.
No.
But fair play. And Behrman drove a very good race because he was started 18th or 17th, didn't he? So overtook a lot of people on his mediums at the end. And Albon too, very good. Had a couple of laps led as well, which is always nice.
Yep.
In the first
Williams leading their first laps in
10 years.
Who knows how long?
They said.
Probably, we were in 10 years, wouldn't it?
Well, Silverstone 2015.
Of course. Yeah, I was thinking of Maldonado in 2012.
Bottled the 1-2.
They did. Yeah, they did. They could have genuinely won that one, I reckon.
Yeah, they should let Bottas go.
They should have. They absolutely should have.
Yeah. I'm going to do your quiz. Okay. It is McLaren's... I saw a tweet. Hang on.
Oh, here we go.
It is McLaren's 50th 1-2 in F1 history.
Okay.
So very simply, there's 22 answers. So I'm going to give you 90 seconds because a lot of them you'll reel off. Every McLaren race winner in Formula 1.
Oh, just race winner.
Just race winner. The time starts now.
So Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Daniel Ricciardo, Jenson Button, Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Heikki Kovalainen, David Coulthard, Kimi Räikkönen, Mika Häkkinen.
Doing well so far.
Juan Pablo Montoya.
Yep, you got all the 2000s ones.
No, that's all right then. Obviously, Ayrton Senna.
You've had 30 seconds.
Alain Prost. Gerhard Berger.
Yes. Going well still.
Niki Lauda.
Yep.
James Hunt.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. John Watson, obviously.
Yep. There's 5 left. You're doing very well. You've got 30 seconds.
Oh God. I can picture his face. I just can't remember his name. Fittipaldi.
Yes.
Yep. That wasn't the one I could picture his face, but couldn't remember his name.
20
Katie
seconds.
Alboreto?
No.
That was just a random guess.
That was
he went for Ferrari,
driver,
didn't he? I think. Yeah. I already said John Watson.
10 seconds. You did.
Oh, I'm just starting to struggle now. There's a couple more Brits in there. I just can't remember their names. I'm happy I've got all the ones from my era at least.
There you go. Time up. There's one you probably should have got. And one more champion and 2 that maybe.
Yeah, I was trying to go through 2 and right at the end to remember all the champions.
So Jochen Mass, who won it.
Genuinely didn't. He didn't win his world title for McLaren though, did he?
He didn't win a world title, but he.
Oh no, I'm thinking of Rindt. Sorry, that's what threw me off. Yeah.
Jochen Mass was the one who won at Nürburgring in '76 in Rush.
Yes. Yeah.
Peter Revson, which is very hard.
Yeah.
Denny Hulme.
Didn't know he even raced for McLaren.
Fair. And finally, one who you should know who raced for McLaren, Bruce McLaren. Won a race.
Of course, yeah. I can never remember whether obviously he ever raced for McLaren as such, or whether it counts as McLaren as part of their stats.
No, he did. So 18 out of 22 is not too bad.
I'll take that, honestly. I'll take that. What's that? High 80%, just over 80%.
Exactly.
Isn't it? Every team but Alpine now has scored this year, Jamie, which is quite funny when Alpine have not been the worst car.
Alpine really haven't been the worst car. Yeah, wow.
No.
Wow, fair play. Williams still up in 5th. Yes.
Yeah, love that. Love that for
Yes,
them. I genuinely think they could beat Aston this year. So could VCAR if they got a bit
easily,
more lucky.
Yeah. Also, the fact that Max Verstappen lost 1 point to Lando Norris this weekend is crazy. I really think he's hustling. He will be in that championship fight for a long time.
Yeah, Russell's only a point behind him.
I know, yeah.
So I think you've got to give credit to them both, and I'm hoping that, say, Leclerc and Hamilton
I would hazard a guess that Mercedes is slightly better than the Red Bull overall, to be honest.
I don't think there's a lot in it, to be honest. I think people overhype Max.
We're already looking at a 4-way fight, and if the Ferraris can get back in there, that'll be good for them. But now,
Antonelli, he's still ahead of the Ferraris.
Yes, but will he be there for long? I'm not too sure.
Probably not by the end of Japan, but there we are.
Exactly. The prediction review. We had obviously an extra prediction for the sprint race.
We did. What were the scores on the doors coming in?
I was 4-1 up after Melbourne, so that was going well for me.
You were.
Before this morning, on Sunday morning, none of us had any points.
Because I said Norris, and you said Piastri, Norris.
And obviously, it was a pole position.
Hamilton. Why did I back Lewis, man?
Yeah, Hamilton won the sprint, which no one guessed, and Piastri got pole, and we both guessed Norris on pole. So no points there. You went for a Lando Norris race win.
1 point.
+1. Oscar Piastri in second. +1.
1 point.
And Max Verstappen in...
Oh, I hate this. I'm looking at yours
in
already.
0 points. I predicted Max Verstappen to win the race, which is nothing.
No points.
Lando Norris second. 2 points.
1 point.
And George Russell third.
No, it's 2! I hate you so much. It's like the most Jamie score in the world.
By virtue of missing Piastri out completely, I've got Norris and Russell bang on. So thank you very much. 4 points.
Oh,
which makes it 8-3 overall.
That's
a nice
terrible.
early lead taken to Japan.
I hate that. I absolutely hate that. Let's do race rating, Jamie. It was a bit dull, wasn't it?
It was not great. I'm going to be a bit harsh and say a 4.
So am I. I think there's going to be a lot of good races this year. What did we give last weekend?
We
didn't
weekend,
get that.
I gave you 8. Both of us
we
gave
didn't
8.
key that in, did we? We didn't get that pinned.
Well, we'll get that on the notes. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go with you. I reckon that was a 4.
It really wasn't good. And yeah, I hope there's not that many worse than that, but it wasn't fantastic.
No, and I don't think there should hopefully be 2, which is odd as well because Shanghai's normally a good little track for races as well.
We're going to Suzuka next, so don't get your hopes up.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably not one to get too confident about. People that still say Suzuka's a great Formula 1 circuit, they just need to put DRS in towards 130R.
Sorry, the track's not too small. The cars are too big.
Yeah, exactly. Put DRS into 130R, it'd be fine. I
and leave it
genuinely think you
open
get a much
around
better show.
130R.
If you want to, yeah, exactly. I genuinely think you'd be fine then if they did that.
Everyone's got a Lucas Di Grassi on the formation lap.
Probably. Have we got anything else? Driver of the day, Jamie? And we're not going to give it to Antonelli, I don't think.
I'm not going to give it to Antonelli. I will, though, give it to Ollie Behrman. Because I thought he was class. I know he lost to his teammate in quality and race, but to come from 18th to 10th, very good stuff.
On a compromise strategy.
And he actually made overtakes, which not many did. So
no, exactly. I think, Jamie, because we didn't give it to him in Australia when I think he could have deserved it, I'm going to say George Russell.
Fair play. He was very good. Very solid.
He did the most... He's just going to just be... George Russell this year is going to be Charles Leclerc last year. He appears in P3.
He just... Whatever happens, Russell's in third.
Exactly. Well, thank you all, as always, so much for listening. If you're not already, please make sure you get yourself subscribed. We are up to 886 subscribers on the channel, so we're just over 100 way from 1k. Jamie and I will be back next week, obviously, to preview the Japanese Grand Prix as well. Jamie, have you got anything else to add before we finish off?
I don't think so. If any penalties come out, we've stopped recording at 10 o'clock. So, unfortunately, we've missed them.
Yes, we're sorry about that as well. But thank you all as always so much for listening. And yeah, Jamie and I will be back then, ready next week to preview the Japanese Grand Prix. We get a break week. We get a lie-in Jamie this weekend. Fantastic news.